From a complex maze of sci-fi dread
to the Amazon with my mum, who was researching spiders before she died.
Today, we'll be discussing Madam Web and Stalker.
But before we get to that, we've got a surprise.
This week on The Film Angle.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Kris.
And I'm Alfie.
Oh!
Hey!
Invaded your podcast.
Absolutely. We have today a special treat. We kind of alluded to it last week. Our first ever guest on the podcast. Director Alfie Martin, who will be discussing his latest short film, Cat Person, as well. So welcome to the podcast, Alfie.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Long time listener.
Oh, I'm glad to hear. Every single one of our episodes got played yesterday.
Yeah, I listened for a really long time before I got here, yeah.
It was the first time my phone ever got a notification in the last year, so thank you for that, Alfie.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll give you 5 stars on Spotify as well after this. Once this episode's out, it's a bargain on my end as far as I'm concerned.
It's a prerequisite, you have to do
it. We make zero money, it's all we can ask.
Well, I wish you made millions, I really do.
Oh, same.
My favourite film podcast, not like that other film podcast.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we'll talk about that other film podcast later.
Yeah. That other podcast, kind of embarrassingly, they were like giving us compliments on the last episode. Felt kind of desperate. Let's say about that, the better.
Yeah, that is embarrassing. I would never go on that podcast. Don't check their episodes because I've never been on there.
We don't mean that, of course.
No, not at all.
Yeah, this is like a big deal for us, though, because like we're nearly at 3-digit episodes now, and we have yet to have had a guest on. Not through like lack of trying. I think it's just that we just haven't been very proactive in getting guests on, and we're like, that's like our New Year's resolution, Alex. I think we kind of talked about before. So yeah, we're glad that you could be the first one.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
No problem.
Like I say.
Yeah, we got a funny couple of films to discuss with you tonight, Alfie. So I hope you're looking forward to that. We did send Alfie the schedule, and we said these are the films we're thinking about talking about. And there was a bunch of highbrow Oscar bait films on there, but Alfie said no. I want to talk about Madam Web.
Yeah, I made that choice, and that rests entirely on my shoulders. I don't know what I was thinking.
It was good though, because we weren't 100% sure we were going to watch it. But then
I was not going to watch it.
Yeah, you definitely weren't, Kris. I was intrigued just as a Spider-Man fan. You. Knowing full well it was going to be awful, but I wasn't expecting to be as awful. But we'll get into that in a minute. We thought for our kind of guest to get to know you a bit more, Alfie. Did you bring along? Well, not physically, but like four films to get to know you better is kind of how we.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah,
phrased it to you.
I've been redrafting this ever since you suggested that, and going over and over in my head and checking my letterbox to try and make sure I've got this right. But I think I've got my 4 films, and they're a really random selection of movies. But they
excellent.
Probably sum up my brain. My first one's Back to the Future. It's one of my all-time favorite films. It's got heart. It's got suspense. It's got time-traveling DeLoreans, which are just everything to me, basically. And I don't know. I love that kind of mad 80s high concept science fiction stuff. So it really does tick all my boxes. And then I think a slightly more highbrow choice, I'm going to say 2001. I remember watching this film with my dad when I was maybe 10 years old, and was being absolutely bored out of my head watching it because it was not Star Wars. And then years later, going to see it in the cinema and dragging my wife along with me, and realizing, now I get it. And calling my dad, I understand now.
I feel like. Well, I don't know so much about you, Kris. I think you did appreciate the film prior to the cinema screening, but we both went to see it recently on the big screen.
It was our last episode we talked about, actually, Alfie.
We both discussed our kind of like initial boredom with 2001 when we first saw it, and then it's just a different beast in the cinema.
Needs to be seen in the cinema, yeah.
It really benefits from it. They had the intermission when I went to see it. Did they have that when you... I didn't know it was an intermission, so I was just sat there. With,
I didn't know what to do with myself.
I go outside or call my dad again? No.
Yeah.
But no, I love that. It's I think about that film a lot, and it's Kubrick's probably one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. So it's a good kind of catch-all for him as well. And then probably Donnie Darko, which is again another pretty weird left field film, but I don't know, something about that movie that just really ticks all my boxes.
Yeah, nice.
And then finally, this one's more recent, but Master and Commander. I don't know. Have you guys seen that recently?
Yeah, that movie slaps.
I have not seen it in a long time. Like so much so
the ultimate good dad movie. Like it's a dad movie, but it's good. Like it's got that too. I used to watch all the time.
Yeah, it is a dad movie, isn't it? Yeah, I've got worryingly like dad movie taste.
No, but it's a good one. It's not like not in a bad way. I don't mean that at all.
Yeah. So it's definitely something you'd buy your dad on DVD. You would just find out it's got boats in it, like like that,
and Russell Crowe,
and Russell, of course, But that movie's amazing, and it's such a kind of like Peter Weir as a sort of filmmaker has this really broad stroke and big ideas, and he just doesn't make enough stuff. I know he's probably about 100 years old now, but like I love that film, man. I think about it way too often. So
nice.
That's my top 4, and that probably would have changed if you'd have asked me 5 minutes before. So
That's how it always is. But yeah, we wanted to chat with you today because of a short film that you made. You wrote it, you directed it, you star in it, but also I am also one of the stars of the film.
It's a necessary project, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, Kris, you're blessed to be in the presence. It's almost like you're doing the Q&A with me and Alfie, and the one scene and the 2 lines I got. I'll let you know all about my method and stuff like that. But no, I am kidding. I went to university with Alfie. You were one of the first people I met at university, actually.
Right.
We've been friends ever since. And obviously you've been making a whole slew of short films, and a couple of them I have starred in. But dare I say, Cat Person is your best yet.
Oh wow! Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot, Alex. Yeah, no, it was an honor to have you in. I kind of was basing it on people that I think are really funny and appealing on camera, and everyone said no, and then the only option was you. No, I'm joking.
I did feel like it was very last minute on the day message.
Here now,
Did you notice in your films Alex does get the smallest role? Maybe there's something to that.
I don't know. I think it's one of those like.
Symbolic.
It's a symbolic role, Alex. That's what we'll say.
I come in, I steal the show, and then I leave.
Yeah, I was like, glad they didn't give that guy too much screen time, or else he would have just overloaded the whole thing.
If I was going to make it again now, I probably would ask you to be the main character, and I'll take the small role. I don't know why I ever thought I could carry a short film.
Oh no, I think that would be too much pressure.
Well, I'll say, though, Alfie, I watched it again today, and I think you're sort of perfect in that role, to be honest. I think the more sort of stripped back stoicism you have compared to like the rest of the cast and all the weird stuff that's going on around you kind of just makes the point even clearer. So, I think you did a good job.
Oh,
yeah.
No. Oh,
do you want to sum up the film for our listeners, because I don't think everyone can see it yet, or if they can see it, let us know where they can find it.
It's about a sort of, I don't know how to describe him, a kind of sort of like transient young man that goes to visit his friends for a dinner party, a sort of get together. You don't really know their relationship, but it's like they've obviously go back a long way, and he's kind of tormented by their new cat in his house, but the cat is not what you expect, I guess. I don't really know. When I wrote this, I thought it was like a really good mainstream idea, and then I made the film, and it is not that at all. It's very unsettling. Basically, the cat is a man, and it's just watching a grown man act like a cat which is inherently amusing to me, and hopefully to you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Like the idea on paper does sound kind of, that works. That's a nice, conventional, interesting film. But then when you're watching it, I think there's something about like that mix of it's the letterbox format, isn't it? The square format, with the grain and the just kind of unsettling nature of it all. It like really gets under your skin in a really weird way.
Exactly. It kind of, for me, I agree with you, Alex. It kind of toes that line between actually kind of laugh out loud hilarious at times and its dark depiction of dark humor, but like there's a sense of anxiety the whole way through watching it, like if going through your character and experiencing the cat who you can only see as a human form and everybody else sees as a cat. That's quite interesting to watch, and as the film kind of went on for me, kind of got that dread kind of came more and more to the forefront.
That's exactly what I was going for. So that means a lot. It'd be worrying if I wasn't going for that. I suppose it would have been a drastic failure. It was such an uncomfortable watch. But yeah, I think on it tonally it's so jarring because it sort of goes from weird domestic kind of people just being like, there's an element of sort of, I don't want to say class, but like, differing economic circumstances for characters. And one of the main characters is comes off as a bit smug. He's played by Ben from the other podcast, which is Cineboys. He's a good friend of ours, and I think he's absolutely hilarious as an actor. So wrote this kind of unbearably sort of smug character for him to play, and I think he just does such a great job with it. And the character that I play in the film is supposed to kind of be, I don't know, he's not really figured himself out in life yet. He's kind of, I've got a whole backstory that they were really worried about this guy and they wanted to check up on him basically to make sure he's okay. And the fact that he's just delusional and pictures a cat as a man kind of implies that he's not. But I don't know how well that translates. But it was really fun. I mean, mostly it's just an excuse to hang out and, try and make each other laugh on camera, which is always quite fun. But I don't know if I'll ever put myself in a film again. It was a painful process editing.
Oh no! Do you know what? I feel like editing the podcast is somewhat similar. You start to notice all the little weird things you do. Yeah. And I know, like when Kris and I first started doing this, we used to like make fun of each other. Or me, I used to have like little things I would say all the time. You would just kind of make fun of me for.
That's not fair. I think that was a two-way street. There is a real. I think the more Alfie, like I think you're so good that you should keep doing it, because I think eventually you'll like iron out that feeling and you'll end up enjoying it. I think we're the same, where we're like, it took me to like episode 50 to actually kind of listen to an episode of myself fully and kind of relax in my voice. And I
can hear that listening to the podcast as well, how you guys have gotten more comfortable, and it doesn't feel like, and this is what I think a bad podcast would sound like. You may be like listening to someone just like give you their opinion on a film, and it's more of a kind of a conversation, and you have points and you clearly like structure it a bit more. It feels thought out, which is I guess that can only come with having recorded as many episodes as you have, right? So
that's it.
Well, you did get some insight into our process before we came on, and you realised that we are kind of winging it as well.
I saw how the sausage was made. And it was,
pre-production is minimal at best.
Oh no, it's amazing. They've got like you can't see it because this is only audio, but they've got like a whiteboard, and it's amazing. There's
there's a pyramid scheme right behind me.
It's a lot more elaborate than I was expecting, to be honest. I was really impressed by the green room you had me sat in as well.
It did say green room, yeah. So what is you've been playing this, obviously you mentioned in film festivals. So how's the response been? Have you managed to engage with other people outside of of us? You've responded to the film?
It's an eye-opener as to how competitive the film festival world is. This is my first film I've directed on my own, and my first film that I've also pursued into film festivals, and it's kind of an eye-opener as to like the quality levels of other people's films. one in particular that we did pretty well in was the London Liftoff Short Film Festival. We were placed in the local filmmakers category, and it was like an audience voted thing. I think there were like 137 films, and we came third, which was like a massive achievement for us. So we're really happy with that.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that we were in there with some really excellent films and other filmmakers that have, you know, put a lot more time and effort, quite frankly.
You really saw yourself short, man.
Oh no, I did do this intentionally quite lo-fi, and I think that made the my little shabby little film look quite casual by comparison to the rest of them, and which might be why. I don't know. Maybe I'm probably a bit too hard on myself, but yeah. I mean, the fact that we got that level is good because you know it meant that an audience such as it was actually connecting with the film. So that was great, and that's I think the big accomplishment. And we're legit's the group that make all the films, and it's, you know, everyone that from Falmouth University that's still kind of affiliated with it. We don't make films very often now because we work full-time jobs and stuff, but this third place kind of placing in an audience category is for us is like, you know, winning an Oscar. So we're like, yeah,
yes,
loving it. And as a result of that, I think we're like, oh, we'll just pop it on YouTube now and, you know, let people watch it for free, because it's a learning process now to refine that film and then go back and try and do something bigger and better the next time, and hopefully, you know, do better again in the festival circuit, because it is really competitive and the work people are putting out there is like excellent quality.
Wow, I'm glad it did well, and we'll link to it in the notes if it's available on YouTube by the time we release. But
yep.
And if not, we'll still link to it at a future time.
we will definitely signpost that bad boy.
Yeah.
I'll endeavour to get this film on YouTube now because you've been so kind about it. I feel like I need to fulfill my end of the bargain here. So yeah,
we've given you a deadline. You can't skip it.
Yeah,
is Mickey H on the same YouTube channel?
It is.
It is. All right, we'll go back and watch Mickey H as well, everyone.
I recommend that to everyone.
Yeah, I have a slightly bigger role in that one, but only by slightly. But I bloody love doing that one, and I love that film. I've seen it so many times. I just put it on for fun sometimes. It's so silly. I love it.
That's my as a filmmaker, if I can call myself that, my biggest accomplishment to date. That film is absolutely phenomenal.
Can I say, Alfie, whenever I first met Alex, and I think the first time I ever went round his house after we've kind of been hanging out for a few months, he showed me that film, and I had that was my introduction to like Alex's friendship group, and so I had no stake in the game. I kind of came into it completely blind, and I don't know you guys that well, but I still laughed my ass off the whole way through. I completely got what you guys are going for. Man.
That's a testament.
I think I was crying when I watched that. Like I don't know if you remember, Alex, but I was absolutely creasing.
You were. You also I hadn't at the time seen that many Werner Herzog films, so you actually explained a lot of the films, a lot of the jokes that actually went over my head at the time. All I had was the Mark Kermode being shot. Werner Herzog being shot during the interview with Mark Kermode. I was like, oh, I understand that bit, that scene I'm in. But yeah, all the others, you were like, oh, that's from The Grizzly Man. I was like, oh, is it?
Was it Alfie yourself that was playing Chris Evans? Is that right? Yeah.
My physical resemblance to
oh, it's uncanny. Yeah.
To the radio DJ, yes, but maybe not the Hollywood film star Chris Evans.
I think the latter more than the former. Don't be hard on yourself again.
I'll take that. No, that's great. No, it was that again. That's what we worked with Ben on that, and also Lee Markham, who's a really funny,
hilarious in that. Yeah,
and he and I had the idea when we were at university during a house party, because it's the kind of thing that film students do at house parties, is they go off in the corner and make up ideas for short films. And we sort of promised we'd make it, and then, you know, it was pretty much like a decade later we actually made it, our half-hour magnum opus. And hopefully we'll make another one day. I'd love to do another Mickey H film.
I'll be there.
Yeah, opening day. Online.
Opening day.
Yeah, shall we move on to the meat of the episode, the main course per se, the one we really want to get into. the film of 2024 so far.
One of the films of all time, for sure.
Madam Web, the latest Sony Spider-Man universe film that follows in the footsteps of masterpieces such as Venom 1 and Venom 2 and Morbius. It's been a good run so far.
Yeah, that's a real roster of art you're talking about there. It must be good, I'm assuming.
Yes, of course. It is, shall we go into the plot? It is a film about a girl whose mum died whilst researching spiders in the Amazon. And
you just got that from the trailer.
Yes, true. It's actually, when I think, how did they sell this film?
The trailer, when you're watching the trailer, you actually do not know what the movie is about. All you know is that I'm getting very sleepy during this trailer, and I don't usually get this way.
It's just, I mean, was the opening scene of the trailer the bloody Spider-Man, the fake Spider-Man, Ezekiel Sims? Going
the diner scene, was it?
Yeah, it was the diner bit, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I remember so proud of that camera flip. They just kept showing that.
Yeah, like, check this out. And then, so she basically, she's a paramedic who sort of speaks out loud to herself about her mum frequently. She, after a sort of ill-fated incident on a bridge, which again felt really similar to scenes from other Spider-Man films, really vaguely, didn't it? And then she almost dies, and then turns out from that point on she's got like the ability to see what happens about 30 seconds into the future, but whenever it's convenient, I guess.
Yes. And the film will only let you know when it's in reality, when it's also convenient as well.
Exactly.
No rules to these highly frustrating powers.
And when you want to save a pigeon as well, you know.
Yeah.
But I when you want to save a pitch, I think the only way to get into this film is just to maybe just like go through it a little bit. Is that all right with you guys? And maybe we can
work it out
from there. What did we see? We and obviously for anybody listening, if you don't want to be spoiled, if you like, if it really matters to you, like, stop listening. But honestly, I think if you've watched it, you'll have fun. If you haven't watched it, hopefully we don't convince you to go. It's not worth it.
There are episodes of your podcast that I still haven't listened to because I'm like, I want to watch that film before I hear what you have to say about it. If you had just released a Madam Web episode, I wouldn't have bothered watching it. I'd have just listened to your podcast.
Well, the truth is, Alfie, it's less that we want to talk about the film. It's that trying to navigate talking about a film in a non-spoiler way is such an effort that we cut straight to the meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah, we know we're losing listeners by we always outright say we are spoiling films, but you just can't have a discussion without spoiling a film.
Not for the kind of podcast you guys are doing. So like.
Yeah. Screw the list. No, I shouldn't say that. No, we don't want to lose the two we have. One of which is on the podcast.
I'm not listening to this one. My wife probably will. So.
Hey,
one new listener.
Happy days.
We start with a scene from the past where Madam Web, who we should just maybe call like Cassie or
it's Cassandra or Cassie, isn't it?
Yeah. She her mum is researching spiders in the Amazon, and she dies. And the guy who kills her is Ezekiel, played by Tahar Rahim.
Yeah.
And he kills her because he wants the very rare spider that she's collected for some reason. We're not 100% sure what he wants it for. I don't think we ever get down to the bottom of why he wants the spider, but he wants that spider. And and then all of a sudden the footage goes into these like really weird like jump zooms. Did you guys get put off by that?
Yeah, they did that a lot, didn't they? They liked that effect. Yeah.
I can only assume that this isn't the original way the film started, because they do use all this footage again later in the film.
Yes, it's exactly the same, isn't it? Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it was filmed for that flashback where it is a little bit more like stylized. Weird, and then they were just like, this film doesn't make sense without a prologue. So we're going to chuck it in, but not
it still doesn't make sense with the prologue, to be fair.
It doesn't. She's then taken by spider people in the Amazon who are painted red with these kind of vines on them that make them look very much like Spider-Man.
Like a bootleg Spider-Man costume.
It's like a bad episode of Star Trek, isn't it? It's like some side character villain. Yeah,
we have Spider-Man at home kind of looking sort of characters, aren't they? It's awful.
They allowed the rare spider to bite her, and then she gives birth to Dakota Johnson. It then
not like a grown-up Dakota Johnson. It is a baby.
A baby. Yeah.
Yes, a baby. It then cuts to 2003, where that baby has somehow made it all the way back to the States, and is a grown woman and a paramedic, and they are driving in the most kind of bizarrely edited ambulance. Chase scene that isn't really a chase scene and doesn't really have a resolution. It's just them driving frantically around
It just implies that Dakota Johnson's character just drives like that at all times.
Yes. And for a minute I was really worried because it made me feel quite ill, and I thought, oh god, is this film going to be edited like this the whole time? But no, it makes some really weird drastic editing choices throughout.
Did you notice the really prominent blockbuster in the opening sequence?
Yes, I did.
Blockbuster video. I was like, wow, it's 2003. I was like, I don't think blockbuster was a particularly prominent thing then, to be honest. But
no, the film's just like, this.
It had a few moments of that, didn't it?
They do it again later, where they like linger on a shot of like a Beyonce album.
That's right.
Oh yeah, the big mural on the wall. Yeah.
How do we make it obvious that this is 2003? Like, giant Beyonce poster. That would do.
But then they go the other way, with the guy in the subway is playing a PSP, and that thing hasn't came out for a couple of years at that point.
Really? I didn't realize that. My main brain didn't figure out that was. For some reason, I thought it was a smartphone, and then I was like, no, it can't be, can it?
Maybe the guy works for Sony and he had a
prototype model.
Sony doesn't know what it's doing, man. And I must say, I do think this is all Sony's fault. I don't really blame the director. I don't really blame like the stars. And I'm not sure you could probably even blame the writers, because I imagine if you ask them, is this the script that you worked on? I imagine they would say no. So
it's filmmaking by committee at its most sort of like extreme degree, isn't it? It just doesn't feel like there's an original idea left in that project, really.
And S.J. Clarkson, it's her first directorial debut as a filmmaker. I know she's been on a lot of television, but this is her first outing, and that's probably quite overwhelming, especially when you got a committee over your shoulders the whole time.
Great TV director as well. She did some great Succession episodes in particular I can think of.
Jessica Jones, I think she did as well.
Yeah,
right?
So she's got not Marvel, like superhero credentials for sure. Yeah. It's a real shame, isn't it? Like, like a first-time female director, and this is the result.
Yeah, Jesus. It's definitely a case of like, when you're new to the game, you probably can't stand up for a version of the film that's your own as much as like Steven Spielberg would, or would be able to even.
You're telling me that she didn't have Final Cut on this?
I'm saying there's no way she had Final Cut.
The name was probably Avi Arad or someone had Final Cut.
Oh god, that guy. But I'm trying to actually think what happens next after that. All I can remember is
so we spent some time with Ezekiel as well, don't we? Doing whatever he's doing, picking up random women and telling them like all of his innermost desires or fears of being killed by 3 teenage girls whenever he's older. For some reason they're still teenage girls in this flash forward, and he's got gray hair. So it's a weird fever dream.
It really was.
Yeah, no, well, he just makes it his mission, this movie, to kill these 3 girls out of this paranoia. And that is his motivation.
By picking up this woman as well, an opera, of course, where you do most of your one-night stands, he is able to then get this Batman, like Dark Knight style supercomputer that can find anyone's face anywhere. What?
Yeah, because she works for the NSA, right?
Yeah. Whenever he starts mentioning that in conversation, she literally is shitting herself.
And she just has like the NSA's whole CCTV system, like on a USB stick or something, or a floppy disk for all I know.
In 2003, a USB was big deal.
That would have been a big deal. Yeah. All 50 megabytes of it.
She gives out a password, like she reads out the password, and it was like Q46. So there's an actual line in that script. It's just like absolutely insane.
Talking of lines in the script, Tahar Rahim is heavily, I don't know if it was dubbed or ADR'd, but I've got a feeling his scenes, because we've seen him recently in Napoleon. I don't remember anybody being a bad actor in Napoleon, but I've got a feeling that his scenes were maybe like part of a different story, or like there was a different storyline going on that got edited last minute, and that's why all his scenes have him saying something and then the words that come out of his mouth not really matching his lips. So I heard rumors that originally it wasn't the 3 girls that he saw in the future trying to kill him. It was like Spider-Man, and he wants to kill May before she gives birth to Peter Parker.
Okay, that would make more sense as to why those the Parker characters would be in this film, because they don't really have a purpose in this existing movie. So yeah, oh my goodness, this poor movie.
Adam Scott playing
Uncle
Ben
Ben
Parker as well, and it was just like the emphasis on like, I met this woman and stuff like that. And it was just like,
it's weird though, because he says I met this woman, but he never names her. They're so scared to name her, and they're so scared to name the baby.
Yeah,
but like they have no problem, obviously, with him being there.
Yeah,
Mary Parker being there, played by Emma Roberts. That was a weird one. I didn't know she was even in the film.
No.
And then obviously
she wasn't in the marketing for this film, I guess.
She came off lightly.
Dodged the bullet there,
yeah. And then you have all the weird Spider-Man stuff that's in it. So like Ezekiel is essentially like a anti-Spider-Man. All the powers, none the responsibility. And they butcher the powers and responsibility line like a couple of times as well in different ways. Yeah, it was fascinating. But yeah, I assume with Ezekiel, there was something else going on in those scenes, and he was just completely the whole storyline was changed, and they just dubbed over whatever was there. I can only assume.
Yeah. It sounded at points like there were scenes when he, like, it was the back of his head, so you could just see his mouth moving, and like it was like audio from like a close up. Like that had gone in, like, so it sounded really gravelly and intense like that. But it was
his voice was always like really loud, like it was in a recording studio, 100%. Yeah,
they want to take my spiders.
It's just absolute insanity the way that a movie that set up starts this film, and also in that opening with Dakota Johnson driving around like a maniac. She bumps into all of the girls that she then goes on to meet, right? Like that's,
the skateboarder girl. Yeah.
Her web connects them all. Like,
yes.
I kept thinking that when I was watching. I was like, you know what? It does connect them all.
I finally get the movie now, Alfie. Actually, this is instantly a 4-star.
What has been your interaction, or like? Did you guys ever watch like the 90s Spider-Man show? Have you?
Oh yeah.
Were you aware of Madam Web before going into this?
Yeah, she's like a really old lady in like she's kind of in a wheelchair. She was like Doc Ock, not Doc Ock, Dr. Xavier, but with like mad kind of powers. That's all I remember of her. She was in a couple of Spider-Man cartoons.
She's like blind. She always comes in when there's like a multiverse thing going on.
Right, yeah.
She was voiced by Stan Lee's wife in the 90s show.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so pretty cool. So I just wondered. And then Ezekiel, I do have the comics in which Ezekiel is introduced, but he's not really a Spider-Man villain. He's just, there's elements of him that aren't great. Like I think there's a bit. So basically he's in this, it almost feels like he's been merged with another villain called Morlan, who was also introduced in the same issue.
Great name.
And he goes after spider people. It's to do with like spider totems and like drains their energy. It's always spider people. And Ezekiel had the same powers as Spider-Man. It was weird. I actually quite like the comics, but in terms of like the grander scale of like Spider-Man, it always like dilutes that idea of like he was just a kid who got bitten by a spider. It always makes it like this more mythical thing, which I think this film does as well. It's kind of like, it makes it feel like there's like something grander to his origin potentially in the future. And I know
but it's
they don't
immediately uninteresting.
Like the idea of him just being like a kid who gets bitten and has to like learn how to deal with new powers is all of a sudden it's like you're part of this grander mythical spider power thing, and it's like
they kind of did that. They tried to do that with the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, didn't they? Where it was like there was this big narrative, and that was really uninteresting. I think then as well, it's like I think the large appeal of Spider-Man as a character is that he is just a kid, like basically like that's doing low-level stuff in the midst of all of the comic books, like Avengers and all that kind of stuff. To make it this kind of like predestined character is just so unappealing to me. Like it doesn't need to have a hero's journey kind of narrative like stapled onto it, does it?
It's very odd. Should we discuss how Madam Web gets her powers? Because she's in there's been a car accident. She's there as a paramedic. The car falls from the bridge when she's in it into the
East River.
Into the river. Now, why do her powers come in then? Is it because she hit her head on the windscreen, or is it because she's submerged in water like she was as a baby? And if that is the case,
has been in water before she got to
not been
30s, right?
Yeah. I'm wondering what did it?
Never had a bath as a
Never
character.
had a bath.
That's
I mean,
common.
it's New York. I don't know how many of their apartments have baths. Maybe like a shower isn't doing it.
Yeah, it's not enough water. So
Not enough water.
I was less worried about that, Alex. I'm more worried about like Adam Scott, like pulling, like we cut to him saving her, like she's already been saved and she's on the bank of the river. You telling me he jumped off the bridge and swam 18 meters deep, got her out of the car, brought her to the riverbank, and she woke up again? Like what what happened? And there's no one else around. No one else is interested.
No one else.
So what's going on here? Oh my god.
You have no clue what happened to that.
Adam Scott seems like a nice guy, like, but he's no Hercules.
No, he's just supposed to be normal Ben Parker as well, right? Yeah. What the hell? Like, what is it that activates her powers? I didn't really. I thought it was because she had a near-death experience. That was like that she got like some sort of Final Destination powers as a result of it.
It's so interesting that you say Final Destination, because I think the movie just is shot like Final Destination for the most part.
It feels like it does feel like a kind of early 2000s sort of slightly average horror thriller.
Which is sort of the kind of its appeal, if anything. I mean, it's sort of like, it's very fickle, but it is sort of half of its shtick in a way.
Yeah. But it's funny to make a movie that is intentionally like represent, like when people, like when they make like films that are like this shot on film, it looks like it was made in the 30s, and that's kind of appealing. Like there's no one is there like shot like it was made in 2003 and released direct to video. Like no one's excited about that.
Well, I'm sure in like 10 years time that probably will become a thing.
That's true. Yeah. Do you reckon this film is, because I heard some people saying that it wasn't like a good bad, it was just bad. Like, do you think this movie has any kind of like a potential cult appeal in the future?
I think it's too earnest. I think if you made it more campy, like say if you put Emma Roberts in the role of like Cassandra Webb or something like that, and made it a bit more of like the energy that she usually brings to her project, maybe you would have had something that would have winked at the audience a little bit more. But then again, I would have turned people off too. So I don't think there's any winning here, because I think Dakota Johnson's putting in, I actually think she's probably the strongest part of the movie, because there is ad-libbing here and she is trying. Yeah, the jokes don't land necessarily, but there's something endearing about her on screen actually trying to make this thing come together. I don't know if you guys felt similar.
Yeah. Sorry, no, you go, Alex.
Well, I was going to say I fully disagree.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
With the Dakota Johnson part, I do think you're right in terms of I don't think it's bad enough to warrant cult status. I think there's an element of fun to it because, like, I was just baffled that a major studio released something that almost feels unfinished and is so jumbled, and just feels. Just feels awful. But yeah, I thought, like, I don't think Dakota Johnson's a bad actress at all.
No.
Yeah.
But I thought she was awful here. And
what else is she supposed to do with this material?
I don't think it's any problem of her own. I think it is just the lines she's been fed, and like, you know, what do you do when you have to give like major context to your cat? You know.
Yeah, several scenes where she's just like exposing plot details to a cat.
Yeah,
I hope the spiders were worth it, Mom.
Like, and she's also, and again, this isn't really Dakota Johnson's fault, but I found her a really unlikable person.
Yeah,
throughout the whole film, I didn't root for her. She's highly irritating. I thought the use of her powers is actually quite annoying, and I was just like frustrated every time I was watching.
She wants to put kids' drawings in the bin. I mean, like,
she's not.
Yeah,
you're a paramedic, but you don't like people. You know.
I think they were like, there was a real sort of hackneyed attempt to sort of set up a theme there that, like, oh, she's not very maternal because, you know, her lack of a mother figure, and like, we're supposed to sort of see her learning to be a bit more caring because she's looking after all of these you know, teenage girls, and then obviously she's connecting with them, and it's like, it's supposed to be kind of like uplifting, but it, like you say, she's so unlikable as a character that you're just sort of like, like, you know, like you just don't root for her at any point, really. And I think I agree with you, Alex. I thought she was really, really phoning it in, but again, what else could you have done?
I know. You could. I mean, she is known for quite a dry sense of humor, and she's been displaying that a lot in the kind of run up to this film. And she did. She fired her agents a week after the first trailer dropped for this film. So I think
really? That's amazing.
I think she was sold on being like in a Marvel movie, like an MCU Marvel movie, and B, in something that was like an interesting take. And then got neither of those things.
I saw something quite heartbreaking, and it was a quote. Someone had asked Sydney Sweeney, who plays one of the sort of future Spider Women or whatever they are, and she was quoted. She was asked, like, "Are you excited about joining the MCU?" And she was like, "Yeah, I can't wait. I wish I could say more about it." And it was like, "Oh, she doesn't know. Does she? She's been misled." Like, you know, that might be another agent getting fired there. Dakota Johnson, I think, is a really good actress. She's been really good when she's worked with Luca Guadagnino. I can't pronounce his last name. Guadagnino. There you go. Got to do the accent as well, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And you know, I do think she's a really engaging screen presence when she's got good material, and I think Sydney Sweeney as well is really good. She was great in White Lotus, and I like Adam Scott. So I was kind of like, it might be good because there's good actors in it, but like, it just falls apart, doesn't it? Like, so quickly.
It definitely feels like Sydney Sweeney got attached to this before she became like mega huge. Like, she was like on the rise, but I would say like more people know her now than like Dakota Johnson, maybe from a younger audience.
Yeah.
She's had a really big sort of year as well with that rom-com that just came out.
Anyone But You. Yeah.
Anyone But You. Yeah, that's right.
So
she's kind of, like, I bet Sony were just like, yes, like, you know.
Yeah. Yes, you're definitely in an MCU film.
Can I just say though, what was the costume department thinking with her permanent outfit for the whole film? It's some odd choices there in terms of costuming.
Man, the characters of the Spider Women and are just so one dimensional and awful. Like, honestly, the fact that Sydney Sweeney thinks she's in an MCU film might be good and it might be bad, because she doesn't have to do this again, and she can still be in an MCU film if she in the future.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. They recast it. It'll be all right. Chris Evans is proof of that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the hell they were doing with those characters, because again, none of them were particularly likable. They were sort of just kind of like really like crude caricatures of like teenage girls. It definitely felt like a like how are you doing, fellow kids sort of style acting with you've got the nerd girl, you've got the kind of rebellious girl, and it was just like, this is so on the nose, isn't it?
It was.
But they're not drawn out enough to even embody those stereotypes. They're just so like nothing, I suppose. And by the end of the film, when we got way more plot, I suppose, that we could talk about, but I don't know if we should do it to ourselves. There is a resolution at the end of the film, and they all become a family at the end, but there's this real sort of sense of like neither of these girls would ever talk to each other ever again outside of the situation that they had to be in with each other. There's no way.
Well, their parental figures weren't there for the man.
And now they're getting this. And now they're getting the blind Dakota Johnson in a wheelchair Chinese takeout every night. That's your life. That's the life.
I loved how they did that. Like it was like everyone in the crowd was going to be like, yes,
staring out the window with the blindfold on. It was so funny, and she
ridiculous
her whole persona changed when she had the blindfold on. And to be fair, she did like come across more like the kind of Madam Web we know, I guess. But
it was really annoying.
I was like stifling a laugh because but she takes an underwater firework to the face, right? That's how she becomes blind.
She got off pretty light, I think. And
then I'm not sure how she
thought she got away from that muscular dystrophy, but it came back.
Is that what it was?
I don't know. Like, I think the firework did it. I don't know what happened.
It was implying that it was the muscular dystrophy, mainly because they mentioned it, and it just seemed like, quick, wrap that plot strand up as well.
There's a lot of stuff, and like you said, maybe we shouldn't get into all the heavy plot details, but at one point she pops to Peru as the most wanted woman in New York. Just randomly cuts to she's in Peru.
The perfect 10 minutes for a bit of a nap if you want it. I swear you're not going to miss anything.
Just to reveal her new powers and rewatch the prologue. And then we have the big fight at the end, which is honestly just so uninspiring. And
sponsored by Pepsi, of course.
Yeah, Pepsi logos falling on top of people. Just bad.
Yeah, that was insane, wasn't it? Because there was a big Pepsi product placement earlier on in the film.
Yes.
Well.
Yeah, the barbecue, she's having a Pepsi can. It did look pretty good. Like I would have went for that Pepsi. And then she has a bottle of Pepsi later on in the film. So there's a few.
She didn't drink it. She didn't drink the Pepsi.
She hates it.
It's not in Dakota Johnson's contract to drink Pepsi on screen.
I will say, in that barbecue scene where she doesn't put anything, like it's memories of your mum, and she puts nothing on the note, that was quite funny and just really
supposed to be like, because like, don't you think it was really weird that they were like, what's the memory of your mum? Like, why did she just not put anything in? Like, why did she put nothing in?
Yeah, she should have just like maybe not been part of the game.
And then they're going like, well, go on, share a memory about your mum. Like, really probing, really awkward. And then of course she's like, well, my mum's dead. She died in childbirth. And it was just so, what is happening? That was the first point.
It's like a "Don't worry, darling" thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. I felt embarrassed watching it. I felt embarrassed going into the cinema and saying, can I have one ticket to Madam Web?
Did you have to go to the vendor and ask for a ticket?
Yeah, because I did. I did.
Oh wow!
Real cinemas don't have an app.
No. And then I felt embarrassed being in the cinema, and then when the movie started,
right in the center.
Yeah, my embarrassment shifted towards being embarrassed for everyone involved in that film, basically.
Alfie, I went to see this in IMAX.
Why?
Right. I didn't pay the surcharge. Believe me, I would not have done that. For some reason, in Cineworld, they're like not putting a surcharge if you've got the unlimited card thing. So like, I didn't pay any extra to see it. So, and it was only showing in IMAX for some reason. And 40x, so I wasn't going to see this in 40x. That wasn't happening.
So this movie, like blow wind in your face and stuff.
Yes,
like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't even know where you would put this in. Would you just get cobwebs on the face or something like that? But so this ugly movie is being stretched to its max, and I'm looking around here, and there's actually a lot of kids in the audience, and they're all. I'm not joking. They were riveted.
Really?
I was like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, no fidgeting. I literally turned around and they were like this. They were like, you can't see me right now because this is obviously an audio medium, but like they were glued to the thing and I was beside myself.
Yeah, I had the opposite. There were 3 other people in the screen. It was a dad and his 2 sons, and the kids literally kept getting up and running around the screen, which was like I would have gone out and said, "Can you done something about it?" But then I remembered I was watching Madam Web, so I was kind of like, to be honest, I might just join them and start running around the screen as well. It was absolute. It was bizarre. I couldn't even keep the attention of a couple of 12-year-olds. So that's how bad it was by my metric.
I try not to watch films on the weekend that are 12As because it's always full of kids and stuff. So I saw this midweek and there were 2 other couples, I think, in the audience. And I think I did hear the couple behind us. I think the girl turned around and went, "I really like that."
Oh my goodness.
It was like, what?
Yeah. Would you recommend it to people? To your listeners?
No. I think like it is fascinating to watch a film that clearly has had a lot of issues, and just the fact that like a big studio has released this in the state it's in is kind of fascinating to watch. Like it's almost unbelievable. It's
more fascinating now than it would have been if this came out in 2003. That would have just been kind of status quo, but now it just seems like a real mistake.
Yeah, and it almost makes it more interesting than Morbius, because Morbius is just a shit film, but it's not it's not so baffling.
No,
like
it functions existence. Yeah,
though I do always wonder with these Sony films, Spider-Man films, like who is the audience? Because like I didn't see Morbius. I'm not watching the Venom films in the cinema.
People love.
I'm only
Venom,
watching
though.
This because you said you could watch it, Alfie. Like I'm a Spider-Man fan. It should be for me. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, you're aware of the cynical nature of it, that they're just mining the depths of the intellectual property that they can. Like it's not like, oh my god, like why would anyone be particularly excited for a Madam Web film? I don't know. Venom, maybe, because he's kind of a beloved character, and like you say, Chris, I do think those films are surprisingly popular, considering I think critically they were pretty
they were panned. Yeah. I think the second one has a lot more of its sort of fans among critics than the first, which I'm not a fan of either of them, to be honest. I find the character kind of just irritatingly handled and a little bit hard for me to swallow. But yeah, people seem to really love those 2 movies and love the Tom Hardy performance. So I'm not one of them, but
no, me neither. I think that's it. Yeah.
Shall we end this review by saying something nice about Madam Web? And it can't be a like it's so bad it's good. Yeah, okay. Say we've shat on this film for the last 30 minutes or so.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
We should end on a positive note.
Yeah,
we should.
Okay.
Who wants to start?
Well, it has probably one of the greatest quotes in cinema. When you take on the responsibility, great power will come.
That is pretty moving stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
They completely take the thing from Spider-Man and they flip it around so that it means nothing. I don't understand what that quote means.
Chris, you've not understood the assignment.
Okay, sorry. It was occasionally chuckle-inducing. I like the Ezekiel. I like the dubbing. That's fun.
You did, like an old Giallo film or something.
Yeah. You have that vibe, didn't it?
I liked that they shot a lot of it on location, and I think that comes across. I think there's a bit more kind of realism to the New York scenes than some other properties in the superhero world where it looks a bit more green screeny. Like you can tell they filmed on location and it looks nice.
Okay.
Yeah, nice. I really liked how her web really did connect them all. I thought they pulled that off, and that's all I wanted to see. So, I'm happy to say that.
Well, there you have
it. I like kind of 2003 sort of thrillers that are like a bit niche. So I enjoyed that it was, like you say, a final destination movie from some bygone universe. Chris, I thought that was quite amusing, but that's about as high as I can praise it.
Well, slam cut to an offensively loud version of the Cranberries.
Not a great song, completely unearned, and has no relation thematically to what went on in the story.
Very weird needle drops throughout that film, actually, I have to say.
Britney Spears, Toxic,
Toxic, prominent use of Toxic, which led to the two kids in the screen that I was watching to start dancing around to the song.
Right. That was the one.
Yeah, that was that got everyone's attention, apparently. So, yeah, great film.
Oh god, I just don't understand. I really don't understand how Sony on the animation side can get Spider-Man so right, and the live action side just really not understand.
It's probably specifically because of Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I imagine.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Well, guys, shall we talk about Stalker?
That is such a jarring tonal shift.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. You've seen Stalker years ago, Alfie, haven't you? This is not your first time talking about or exploring this material.
Yeah, I did kind of try and brush up on it myself, and I watched sections of the movie that I was particularly keen to sort of like remember, because it's a very impressionistic kind of film, as I think Tarkovsky is known for. So I didn't have the patience to sit through 3 hours, almost 3 hours of very philosophical Russian science fiction.
Oh yeah. It demands a certain type of mood to come to the material with. Yeah, because it took me because we've seen a lot of movies kind of similar to this sort of style in this list so far, but it took me a while to actually get around to sit down and properly watch this, as Alex will attest to. My first attempt, I did actually fall asleep 20 minutes in, but that was a heavy day and I shouldn't have started a movie like that at 10 p.m. But yeah, the second time I got to engage with it was a completely different story, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. So it is the next blind spot on our BFI Sight and Sound Greatest Films of All Time series. Our second Tarkovsky film. And it's from 1979. It's a sci-fi about a stalker who is someone who provides assistance for people to get into an area of a Russian town called the Zone, which is a place that was hit by a meteorite.
Yeah.
And within the Zone, because it's all been cordoned off now and weird things happen there, within the Zone, there's a room that will grant you your greatest desire. And we follow, I think it's a writer, a professor.
Mm-hmm. They're given code names, but I think that is their actual professions. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it? Who is it? It's a writer and it is only two
writer,
people.
The professor.
And then you have the stalker himself.
Yeah.
They travel in to the Zone for about 3 hours.
Oh wow, not a good start, Alex. I'm getting a vibe off you already.
No, to be honest, after you've seen Madam Web, anything is a masterpiece in comparison.
It's an adrenaline shot in comparison. Yeah,
I did like this film. But I guess just to just like summarize very briefly before we go into it, I thought that it would have been just as interesting if it was shorter. I think there is something to be said about some of the long shots that create a very kind of unnerving sense of kind of horror when there isn't much happening. But there is an element of, by the time the film finished, I was like, I get it. Did it need to be this long? I don't know, but I might be in the minority there. So,
well, go ahead. No, you go.
Sorry. Your podcast.
Well, you probably have a more profound thing to say than me, but I find that kind of was a strength, but sort of frustrating as a viewer in a way, because at the beginning, the first half of the story is quite front loaded with a streamlined sort of point of view, where it has that sort of that dread you were speaking about, that sort of almost horror tone, the unknown. I think that sequence when they're going through the meat grinder halfway through the film is was really, I was on the edge of my seat in terms, like, I had no idea what, the space that we were occupying. If something was going to happen, if something wasn't, there was just such a real tension and eeriness to like the nothingness that was in that area, but the sense that anything could have happened at any time. And as the story develops and becomes more complex as it goes along, you kind of start to realize that maybe this is not an actual physical manifestation of something that can actually happen to these people, but it belongs within themselves and their psyche, and they've conjured this sort of uninhabitable place for themselves, and perhaps the fear doesn't really exist, and brings up all these other conversations on the back of that. So yeah, it's one of those really fruitful films. I kind of, if I was to watch this 10 times, I don't think I ever will. I really enjoyed the experience as it was, but I feel like the layers would just begin to keep peeling as you rewatch this film.
Absolutely, it's loaded with these kind of movies, and you'll probably find this with most of the ones you talk about from that BFI list. That they all already have a kind of like reading list associated with them, in that people have kind of sat there and said, "It's about this, it's about that." It's like there's so much you can interpret from it, and that's the thing about that film, is it's maybe a bit of a litmus test to how you feel, that you could maybe take different things from the film. Because so much of it is just you watching like a dog walk around like for 2 minutes, and you're like, what's going on here? Like, what's the meaning of this? But I think I think it's a really interesting movie that does demand your attention in a way that like it would be so understanding that you'd fall asleep, because I could not bring myself to rewatch this, having seen it I think twice before. So.
Oh, nice.
And again, it's one of those. It's a movie that maybe when I rewatch this, inevitably it'll click or something, and I'll be like, I get it, like like it makes sense. But
there is something oddly hypnotic about the experience, though. To when you engage with it properly, I did pause the movie halfway through just to kind of have a quick coffee break, just to kind of give myself an intermission. I thought it was a really good way to do it, but I felt myself become increasingly engaged with it. I think it's definitely, don't go on your phone when you're at home watching this, because you will lose the sort of momentum that Tarkovsky really does actually earn. This film is very beautifully bookended with those sepia tone scenes. The intro is while slow, it is very memorable and profoundly quite beautiful to look at, and filled with sadness. This sort of city where there's this hopelessness, it's derelict. These people seem to inhabit these spaces that are like completely not fit to live in, but it has a sort of like metropolis future sci-fi look to everything too. It's very fascinating, but you can understand why people would be so, this movie's sort of about hope, but it's nihilistic at the same time. It's kind of really dependent, like the three main characters that we follow for the story could be any person watching the film, could be either of those characters. And I think that's kind of what the end of the movie is saying too, with the daughter who is, who has a disability, she can't walk properly, and she's looking at the three glasses at the end of the film. That's something that really stuck with me at the end. And they seem to be moving by themselves towards the edge of the table. I know some people sort of kind of hear a train in the background and kind of regard that scene as like, oh, the train's making them move. But to me, it seemed like they were sort of physically moving by themselves, and they kind of represented almost the three characters that we followed along the story. And,
I think for me, it was very much like she was moving them with.
You thought she was telepathic?
100%.
Or telekinesis, sorry.
I say 100%. Like, obviously, there's a million ways to read this film, but also any scene with her in it is not the sepia-toned thing. So I think it's the same kind of color grading as when you're in the zone. So I think she is a child of the zone, essentially.
Yeah, it's implying that she has, like, by using that visual link, it implies that that's connected, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah, so like, as much as the film wants you to think like, oh, maybe it's all in their mind, I think maybe at the end it's like, or is it?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't even know if the film wants you
it?
to think it's all in their mind. I think the film just does a really good use of kind of like bringing across this kind of weird, eerie dread over things you can't see.
Yeah.
It is. I must say, I really did kind of love the kind of philosophical nature of it as it starts to wind down. When they're like outside of the room of desires, and decide not to go in because they're all afraid of what they truly desire. I thought that was a really interesting take.
It was, yeah, and it's there's something tragic about it, isn't there? That like this kind of quest. I think the Stalker, like he kind of implies he's just doing it for no reason, but he clearly has a want to be there and
of course
a need to be in there. And it's like that last scene with him, and one of the last scenes I can't remember, but he's talking about reflecting on it, and there's something kind of like there's something really Christian about it, weirdly, and I feel like maybe Tarkovsky's religious values really come through there in that it's like you said something about hope, Kris, and I think it's that and the concept of having faith despite the circumstances you're in and getting so close to achieving that desire or whatever it is and it ultimately not happening, but maybe it's going to happen with the next generation. I don't know. You could read it that way. It's very critical of the Soviet Union, I think, as a project as well.
Yes.
As a sort of failed operation, and you could almost read that attempt to get to that, to find that desire is a suggestion that has failed as well.
It's almost a critique of the structural, inherent strength that the country have always had to present itself as, and it's showing that we should kind of bring ourselves down to our knees and maybe become childlike again and open ourselves to religion and become sort of moldable again. I think that's sort of what it's presenting to. But again, it's you could keep revisiting this material and maybe have a different stance on it every time. I'd be sort of half tempted in the next sort of year to revisit it just to see if those sort of thoughts or your reflections have sort of manifested into something else. It is the ultimate, like you said, litmus test for judging you as a viewer, not just somebody who on the political spectrum, but how you interpret cinema and how you interpret characters. This could be a different experience for every single person watching it. It is unique in that in the list that we've explored so far, it is a singular film in that way.
What's the other Tarkovsky film that you've done?
Andrei Rublev.
Oh, okay. I have not actually seen that one. That's a blind spot for me still. So,
very, very different film. I mean, pace-wise, it's a lot more sprawling and it's an epic in a way, but it has some of those idiosyncrasies that Tarkovsky has. But yeah, it's a much different type of film. It's a lot more, I'd say it's a bit more accessible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost chaptered. So there's different chapters of Andrei Rublev's life, who is the writer? No,
he is the writer in this. Yeah,
he's the writer in this, isn't he? Yeah,
He died only 2 years after filming Stalker as well.
Potentially, they were kind of exposed to quite dangerous chemicals filming.
I'm not surprised. Do you know what? I read that after watching the film, but the whole time I could literally, scene by scene, Alfie, I could see the asbestos in the air. The amount of honestly, you could see asbestos in every scene in this film.
It looks stunning visually, but Jesus Christ, that's not worth the risk, is it? Because Tarkovsky died at the age of 54 as well, so he was
that was lung cancer, wasn't it?
Yeah, so you can almost assume that this film probably killed him.
A lot of the cast and crew died young after making this film. And it was an awful production as well. They filmed a bunch of stuff with his usual cinematographer, but it was on new film that hadn't been really used before. They couldn't develop it very well, and they lost a lot of the film and had to go reshoot it. And it meant that Tarkovsky kind of fell out with his current cinematographer, even though it was due more to the film stock rather than the cinematographer themselves. So then changed up and had to refilm a lot of it. And it was just a really troubled production. Like you said, all the horrible kind of chemicals they were exposed to and all that kind of stuff. I think there was a river or something that was just laden with chemicals, and unfortunately they all died young. Though I think there's a few conspiracy theories around Tarkovsky's actual death and how involved the Russian government was.
That's for your other podcast, Alex.
But I mean, to be fair, it doesn't seem
everything in this film looks lethal. To put it lightly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, probably shooting an entire movie like that, which is seemingly so critical of the Soviet Union, was such a dangerous idea anyway, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Could have got them killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've seen. Have you seen Solaris, which is like his kind of big sci-fi film?
I actually own Solaris on Blu-ray, but I haven't watched it yet.
It's like 4 hours or something, isn't it? So
yeah, I will get round to it. Yeah, I've heard great things. Obviously, it's another one of his.
George Clooney.
Yeah. You know what though? I actually quite like that remake. I think that remake's better than it has any right to be, considering the audacity of remaking a film like that. But I'm just interested as to whether you'll do that one next, or like if you'll go touch Tarkovsky again. Because
I think there's at least one more film on the list, which is Mirror.
Oh, God, Mirror. Well, if you found this one oblique and challenging,
no, don't tell me this.
Oh wow!
My dad is a big fan of Tarkovsky, and he was actually the reason I've seen any of his films. And he loves Mirror. And I told him, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing a podcast. They're talking about Stalker. He was like, oh yeah, like what about Mirror? That's a great film. And I was like, yeah, it's not my podcast.
Yeah, we're definitely watching Mirror, and I think like as much as I think I preferred Andrei Rublev to Stalker. Though I do think it is a really fascinating and interesting film. I'm definitely interested to see more Tarkovsky. He's one of those people that's always like heralded as like one of the greats of cinema, but
Ivan's Childhood gets a lot of love too.
Not seen before this. This is my second ever Tarkovsky film, but I am a fan of both, but probably more so of Andrei Rublev to this one.
Sure, I need to watch that one then. That's a blind spot, like I said.
If you like the sight of ailing and dying horses and cows lit on fire, then it's for you.
That's the thing. Yeah, there's a lot of animal cruelty in Andrei Rublev that isn't maybe as well. I guess it is intentional, but it was more like of the time.
Eastern cinema in general.
They're talking about kind of European and Eastern cinema that like they just didn't care, did they really? And like it's all for cinema, so they were willing to just do hellish things. Basically, like
it is interesting that like that had a lot of animal cruelty, and this one had a lot of human cruelty.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly making...
Yeah, if Tarkovsky comes knocking on your door, run.
Yeah. Do not give him a degree in health and safety.
No. What do you think he'd have made of Madam Web? Because obviously, like, it comes full circle that way, doesn't it?
I think he would truly believe that her web connects to them.
Yeah. I think he would have really wanted a Pepsi.
Yeah, definitely. This movie was missing aggressive Pepsi product placement. Stalker, I think it could have done with
or a Russia adjacent.
when they're in the zone and they're like, I could really do with like something to quench my thirst, and the professor's like, well, I've got just the thing for you.
That's it. Maybe that's what the room actually provides them at the end. Their innermost desire.
Innermost desire.
A Sprite.
A Sprite. Yeah.
They were just terrified that their greatest desire was to meet Ezekiel. Just comes out of the shadows in the room, is like, have you seen my spiders?
Spiderlings.
These teenage girls want to kill me.
She was researching spiders in the zone before she died.
Oh, man.
Yes! Maybe we should redo the start.
Yeah.
It would have been the same outcome for her. She would have definitely died in the zone.
Yeah, for sure.
That did remind me, and I know we went off Madam Web, but did it strike you as odd when he was using the face technology to find people that he'd only seen in his visions?
Yeah. Yes. How did they, like, because she'd made those, like, Zosia Mamet, by the way, that was randomly in that film.
Oh yeah, but who is she?
Shoshana from Girls. She was in Girls, man.
No, I know the actor, but the character, who is she?
Oh yeah, no clue.
Like he hired someone, I guess, to use his NASA NSA.
He treats like shit, and she's happy for it.
Horrible to her constantly. Yeah, I thought that was going to set up the fact that she would like stop helping him or something because he was like, oh, this is wrong, because she kept sort of saying stuff like that. But anyway, long story short, how did she get those creations of the spider women? Like, where did she make?
He's
those
had the
from?
dream so many times that he doesn't even need to think about it anymore.
You just draw it from memory.
I think I think they had a pre-production meeting. They just want to skip that for the film, but yeah. I think he's told the dream so many times that she could see their faces.
Yeah, little identikit.
That is his personality. Is that dream?
Yeah, literally is, isn't it?
Yeah, if Tarkovsky was making Madam Web, it would be about why he isn't living life to the fullest because he's so burdened by the visions of the future.
Mm-hmm. The first 10 minutes of the movie would have just been Ezekiel trying to get out of bed.
Yeah.
You know, maybe getting a glass of water by minute 15.
Thinking about going to the Amazon.
And then there would have been like a 5-minute scene of him just like driving down a really long, narrow road for some reason, and you're like, "What's happening?"
Yeah,
here?
with one pylon in the distance.
Yeah, yeah, like it's on fire or something. You know? Yeah, I'd love to see that. It's such a weird thought of an art house version of Madam Web in style.
Maybe AI can make that happen in 20 years. We could
Tarkovsky directing Madam Web.
It'll never be as good as what's in my mind.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
yeah, I don't know. It was such a weird tonal shift because I watched Madam Web last night and I got home and I was just reading about Stalker and watching scenes from Stalker. It was just like such a jarring experiment because they're in every philosophical meaning for the existence of Stalker couldn't be any different to why Madam Web exists, could it? Like,
and we always try to wonder, like we generally, Alfie, do the new release first, talk about that, and then go for the heavy one afterwards. But like I don't know what's the right order to do that. It seems wrong either way. But we have to get the work done.
Yeah, well, you're doing the canon, aren't you? You're going through the classics, and that's reminding you why film is important. And then you've got films like Madam Web that are challenging that very concept.
It's challenging,
challenging. Yeah, this is two very challenging films in this episode for completely different reasons.
But I'll give Madam Web credit; it's made me appreciate Stalker more.
Yeah, maybe by comparison, surely, right? Like,
It made me want to watch Chungking Express again after listening to Dreams.
Oh, Wong Kar-wai, yeah. Did you not like that?
I love it.
Oh, you loved it, right? I see.
Alex, not too much.
I thought, I can't remember exactly why, but I thought it was okay. It didn't blow my world.
Have you seen In the Mood for Love?
Yes, I do like In the Mood for Love, and we are going to get to, because when we get to the
it's very high 10, on the list. Yeah.
When we get to the top 10, we're just going to watch them whether we've seen it or not. Apart from 2001, because we literally just watched it and talked about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, In the Mood for Love's number 5.
Nice.
I've got the World of Wong Kar-wai box set, and it is the worst £100 I've ever spent in my life. It is beautiful to look at. None of the Blu-rays work, and I was past my warranty when I first started to watch them, and so basically they work. So I watched 3/4 of each film, and they all mess up 3/4 in. The coding's just fucked on the disc, and all the it's been a horrible experience trying to watch all of those movies, and I ended up having to watch the rest of them on VOD. It looks nice on the shelf though.
It's a good doorstop.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh man, that is heartbreaking. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Our family are grieving, and they respect our privacy at this time.
Well, I think the fact that we brought the discussion back to Madam Web shows what is the main film. The better of the two films is Madam Web. We can't stop talking about it, guys. Can't stop talking about it. No, I think we should probably bring the discussions to an end there on the films. It is interesting that this is the first time we've ever had a guest on the podcast, and we're about to do something we have also never done before, which is our first collaboration with another podcast. We are going to be appearing on the other podcast, as Alfie alluded to earlier, the Cineboys to Cinemen podcast with Danny and Ben, and we're going to be chatting with them in a couple of nights. I'm not sure when it's going to come out. So it might come out before this, but we'll let you know when it's out on their channel. But really looking forward to that.
It's really awesome, super exciting.
You've been on, Alfie.
I invented it.
You were the original
co-creator.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then they stole it away from me.
It's like itchy and scratchy. Yeah,
yeah. Well, that was actually my first foray into podcasting. Was appearing on like the very early version of Cineboys to Cinemen, and we did. What was?
I heard you talk on one episode about Rampage.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, that was it. That was it. Yeah, I was about to say the Dwayne Johnson. Ape movie, Rampage, and then you brought me back on for
was it Avengers?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was like Infinity War or Endgame.
It must have been Infinity War because I think we didn't actually ever do Endgame. We sort of said we would, and then stopped doing it. And then Ben and Danny have picked up a much more efficient version of the podcast.
We're really excited to go on that show. It'll be really fun. I'm sure it'll be sprawling from the pre-talks that we've had already. A lot of topics we're going to be discussing, but really excited about it.
It will also be our first time ever recording in person. We've never actually recorded in person before.
Yeah, that's really bizarre considering we're like nearly 80 episodes in that we have yet to do this in person.
We keep speaking about it, but then we get there's two things happen. We either get worried that it just won't work because of mics in the same area. We get we're not sure if our mics are better for that or better for this rather than recording in person. And then it's just like, do we sync time out of the short time we have together?
Our time together is usually quite limited, so we usually don't want to eat into that too much. We just want to chill and play video games. Do something much less meaningful.
This is what you do to sort of pass the time until you can hang out, basically, right? That's the idea.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah,
exactly. I did see a tweet the other day that just said men will start a podcast just to keep in touch with their best mate.
That is true.
I was like, I've been seen.
What if you guys record in person and your entire dynamic just unravels and just fall out?
Yeah, I know, right? We might not.
I don't know why I said that. So sorry I said that.
Alfie, that is very likely.
No, it's not. I hope it is what are you going to call it? Is it going to be like you're going to mash your names together, or is it just like
this episode is going to be their podcast, and then hopefully we'll collab on.
They'll come onto yours.
They'll come onto ours at some point, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to hear what you guys talk about.
But Alfie, thank you so much for your input today. It feels like we just had the third member of the film angle on. So, you really helped us out here today, and it was really, really nice to talk to you about your film, all the exciting things that you're doing too. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I would spend hours talking about films, so it's always fun to do that. So thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, please have me back anytime.
Only if the fans demand it.
Okay. In that case, I'll never speak to you all again.
Well, it's funny you should say.
Not until
Next
we
week
see.
We'll be discussing Venom and Solaris.
Another Sony / Tarkovsky double bill.
Yes. Yeah. We should do that. Yeah. Not until we see #bring Alfie back trending on Twitter will we will we bring you back to the podcast.
Yeah. My mom's typing it already, Alfie. Right. I guess the big movie we're going to be talking about next time will be probably Dune Part 2, right?
We actually are going to have an episode where we rank the Oscar Best Picture nominees.
Ooh.
Oh,
yes. So that will arrive.
But I mean,
4 or 5
next
days.
new release, yeah.
Oh, the next. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Getting into the nitty gritty of scheduling here. Next new release, June Part 2, which I'll be traveling down to Plymouth to go watch in IMAX with you.
Oh man, I can't wait to listen to the podcast. I need to book a ticket to see Dune as well.
I'm going to go see Part 1 again in IMAX as well, just to kind of connect the bridge.
All right.
Yeah. All right. I think that does it for today's episode of The Film Angle. Alfie again, last time. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been great having you, and look forward to having you in future episodes. You can listen to the podcast, as always, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys get your podcasts from. Follow us on Instagram. But for now, I've been Kris.
I've been Alex.
And And I've been Alfie.
And that's the film angle for this week.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.